She said it with a smile, half laughing. I'm not complaining, but it's not enough. The wine wasn't the issue. She said it to the sommelier, but I knew it was meant for me. It sounded harmless. Witty even. The kind of thing someone says when they know they'll get a laugh. But there was something about the way she looked at the glass. Like it had disappointed her. Like it owed her something more. And for a second, I wasn't sure if she meant the wine or me. We'd been together for over a year. Not long enough to unravel, but long enough to learn each other's patterns and start bending to them. She liked her lifestyle, minimal, curated. Everything intentional. I didn't mind. I liked her. Liked watching her move through rooms like she belonged in all of them. Liked how she ordered the second best bottle of wine just to signal taste, not price. I liked it until I started wondering what she liked about me. Or if I was just the contrast. Something to soften her sharpness. Something to hold the phone while she posed. When she commented on the wine, just a passing remark, I laughed with everyone else. But it clung to me. Not the joke. The ease of it. How natural it was for her to call something insufficient. And how natural it had become for me to assume she was right. It was just a wine tasting. Not a fancy one. A weekend event at some rooftop hotel downtown. She loved the aesthetic, white linen shirts, small pours, ambient jazz. I mostly loved that she invited me. The sommelier made a short intro, then handed her the glass. She held it up like she was appraising jewelry. Swirled it, sniffed. Then that line, like she'd practiced it. I'm not complaining, but it's not enough. A pause, a beat, and laughter. Light, polite, socially appropriate. I smiled too. That tight kind of smile you wear when you're not sure if you're part of the joke or the punchline. She glanced at me, still smiling, then turned back to the pour. The sommelier chuckled and offered to top it off. She declined. Just a joke, she said. But I knew that tone. It was the same one she'd used when I forgot to bring almond milk from the store. It's fine. You tried. Or when I booked a table too early and ruined the lighting. It's not the end of the world. But next time, let's aim for golden hour. On the surface, it's all graciousness. But there's always a correction underneath. A signal that something fell short. That someone, usually me, missed a detail that should have been obvious. It's not about the wine. It never is. It's about being seen doing something well. Having just enough irreverence to seem confident, but just enough control to never look messy. And maybe I was the messy one. The one who didn't know how many ounces were enough. That night, the comment kept playing in my head. Not the words, the ease. How natural it felt for her to name a thing as lacking. And how natural it felt, suddenly, to wonder if she'd meant me. I brought it up the next day. Not as a complaint, more like a question. Casual. Careful. I said, that wine comment was funny, but it stuck with me. She tilted her head and blinked. That practiced kind of confusion, like I'd just asked if the sky had changed color. Then she laughed. Not mean, not cold. Just dismissive enough. Are you still thinking about that? It wasn't cruel. It never is. That's the trick. It always starts soft. She said it like it was a compliment that I paid attention to her jokes. Like it was sweet I'd been affected. Like I was being a little dramatic, but in an endearing way. Then came the turn. You've been kind of sensitive lately. Everything okay? And suddenly, I was the fragile one. The overthinker. The boyfriend who couldn't take a joke. She framed it like concern. Slipped into a tone I'd once found comforting, warm, curious, attentive. But now it felt like a room with no windows. Like I was being told, gently, that my perception was off. That what I felt wasn't real. That I didn't understand her humor. I heard myself explaining. Apologizing. Reassuring her that no, I wasn't accusing her of anything. I just noticed a pattern. That's all. And maybe I'd misunderstood. It was probably nothing. And just like that, the roles flipped. She became the misunderstood artist, I the insecure audience. She said she loved that I was reflective, but that I shouldn't search for tension where there isn't any. That was her favorite phrase when I voiced discomfort. Don't create tension. But I wasn't creating it. I was naming it. It was already there, woven into the glances, the timing, the way her compliments came with footnotes. I just didn't have the language yet to call it what it was. I used to admire her confidence. How she could laugh something off and keep the spotlight moving. Now I was starting to realize it wasn't confidence. It was choreography. She didn't want mess. Didn't want reflection. She wanted flow. Control. And when I interrupted the rhythm, even gently, she responded the same way she had to the sommelier. Smiling. Gracious. And completely dismissive. That night, I started journaling again. Something I hadn't done in years. Not because I wanted clarity, but because I was starting to forget what my voice sounded like when I wasn't editing for her reaction. A week later, we had a mutual friend over for dinner. A woman she'd known since college, sharp, funny, deeply online. The kind of person who made everything feel like a bit. She fit into my girlfriend's life like a perfect puzzle piece. Same rhythm, same curated irreverence. We were midway through dinner when the friend raised her glass and said, "How do you deal with her? She's so specific about everything." Everyone laughed, including my girlfriend. She smirked and said, "He gets me. He knows I'm just intense, not demanding." I smiled. I'd heard that line before. She used it like armor, to make control sound charming. And me? I was cast again as the patient, grounded one. The man who understood her brand of chaos. The stable counterbalance. The beige background that made her shine brighter. Later that evening, as we were clearing the table, the friend lingered in the kitchen with me. She lowered her voice and said, "She's a lot, huh?" I paused. That was a door, not wide open, but cracked. An invitation to share something real. I tested it, lightly. Sometimes it feels like I'm auditioning. She blinked. Her smile flickered, then returned, but tighter this time. She let out a half laugh and said, "Well, you're doing great." Then changed the subject to a meme account we both followed. It was nothing. It was everything. Because in that tiny pause, in that hesitation, I saw it. She knew. She saw the performance, the edge, the impossible standard. But she didn't want to go there. Didn't want to disturb the vibe, risk the friction, or be dragged into someone else's emotional tangle. And I got it. I really did. Because I'd been doing the same thing for over a year, noticing, excusing, adjusting, performing. Laughing when things weren't funny. Nodding when something in me shrank. What I felt most in that moment wasn't betrayal. It was clarity. That even people who see it will still walk away. That recognition doesn't always lead to connection. Sometimes, it's just a passing glance. A look away. She left shortly after. Hugged my girlfriend. Said dinner was perfect. Said I was so grounding. And I realized that grounding was just another word for absorbent. The person who takes in the discomfort so others don't have to. Her birthday dinner was, predictably, beautiful. A rooftop spot she'd discovered, candles in old wine bottles, a floral arrangement that matched her nail polish. She made sure everyone noticed. I helped, of course. Took the photos, carried the jackets, arranged the group shot. I knew the drill by now. She was radiant that night. Not in some poetic way, just polished. Airbrushed in real life. She moved from guest to guest like a host on a lifestyle channel, offering curated gratitude to each person. "You always know what I love. You remembered the color I mentioned. This is so you." When it came to me, she smiled and said, "You made it. I thought you'd be late again." Laughter around the table. I hadn't been late. Not even close. In fact, I'd helped set up. Held her bag while she changed shoes. She knew that. But the joke landed anyway. On me. I laughed too. Late, awkward. The kind of laugh that hopes no one notices the sting. But I did notice. And I started noticing more. Later, while she was talking to a friend, I heard her say, "He's sweet, but a little passive. He needs a push sometimes." Another laugh. Another nod. I stood nearby, glass in hand, watching her paint the version of me she wanted the room to accept. It wasn't malicious. It was editorial. She curated people the way she curated rooms. Some colors pop, others stay in the background. I wasn't the main character. I was a palate cleanser. Familiar, digestible. A grounding energy. And I'd been complicit. Every time I nodded along, every time I laughed too soon or bit my tongue, I'd let her frame the narrative. And now I didn't know if anyone at that table saw me at all, or just the version she'd been softly sculpting from the start. That night, when we got home, she curled up beside me and thanked me for making the night run so smoothly. She kissed my shoulder, said, "I couldn't have done it without you." I said, "Of course," and turned off the lamp. But I didn't sleep. Because suddenly, I wasn't sure if I was her partner or her production assistant. It was the weekend trip that should have told me everything. Our first one together, just 3 months in. She booked the place, a designer cabin nestled in the woods but close enough to a coffee shop with good lighting. I remember thinking how thoughtful she was, how curated everything felt. But that was the point, it was curated. The itinerary came in a PDF, color-coded, mood-boarded. I remember laughing at the time, thinking it was charming. She was organized. She liked the vibe. It felt special, like I was being invited into something rare. On the drive there, we passed this little roadside diner. It was nothing, just neon lights and tired booths. But I mentioned it. Said it looked fun. Said maybe we could stop by on the way back. She didn't even look up. Just said, let's stick to the vibe. Not unkind. Not harsh. But firm. That weekend, we didn't stop anywhere spontaneous. We stuck to the filtered version of nature, the part that fit her aesthetic. At the time, I admired her clarity. The way she didn't apologize for her preferences. Now, looking back, I see it differently. It wasn't about preferences. It was about control. Not loud, not overt, just constant. Quiet. Total. She didn't like mess. Not in locations. Not in moments. Not in people. And I had been easy to fold in, agreeable, supportive, low interference. My spontaneity was inconvenient. My detours? Off-brand. She always said she loved how I balanced her. But what she meant was, I didn't threaten the aesthetic. I didn't disrupt the frame. That trip became the blueprint. I adapted. I softened. I stopped suggesting pit stops. And what's worse is, I didn't even notice. Until now. Until I rewound that weekend in my head, frame by frame. Until I heard her voice again, saying, let's stick to the vibe, and realized how many times I'd obeyed that rule without knowing I was playing a role. I used to think compromise was maturity. But sometimes, it's just erosion. Silent. Polite. Complete. It started like most of her ideas did, with a phrase she said out loud like it already existed. Low-effort luxury. I was making coffee. She said it in the tone of someone naming a startup. Like it had a logo already. Like it was inevitable. I asked what it meant. She said, it's the vibe I already do, curated but chill. Like, quiet indulgence. I nodded. She continued. It could be a series. Short videos. Outfits. Mornings. Me just living. But with intention. I'd heard this tone before. The monologue that wasn't a conversation. She was building the brand in real time. I knew what was coming before she said it. You could help me shoot some stuff. Like we used to. Like we used to. Back when I'd hold the phone while she walked across crosswalks in linen. Back when I knew her good side. When to say wow. Back when being helpful felt like being included. But something had shifted. Now it felt assigned. Transactional. I asked, would I be in any of them? She didn't miss a beat. Maybe your hands. Or your voice, if it fits. If it fits. I didn't answer right away. She was already scrolling, looking at filters. I realized then, she wasn't asking. She was informing. I was a fixture. An asset. A tripod with opinions. Not a partner. Not even a co-creator. Just something stable enough to keep the camera level. She used to talk about how grateful she was that I supported her. Now it felt like support meant silence. Obedience. Being useful without being visible. It wasn't about vanity. It was about control. She didn't want the world to see her life. She wanted the world to see the version of her life that proved she'd won. She called it effortless. But I was starting to count the cost. Not the time, not the labor, the invisibility. The slow extraction of presence. Being there, but not seen. Holding everything, but appearing weightless. I didn't say no that day, but I didn't offer to help either. And for once, she didn't push. She just assumed I'd come around. Like always. It was one of those rooftop parties that looks spontaneous, but isn't. Everyone dressed like they weren't trying, which means they were trying very hard. Cans of overpriced seltzer in hand, soft lighting, playlists that hummed without drawing attention. She fit in effortlessly. Or more accurately, she made it effortless for herself. The right laugh. The right angle. The right references to brands that sound like names and names that sound like brands. I stayed quiet, as I often did. Took photos when asked. Refilled drinks. Held a jacket or two. Then I heard it. She was talking to someone, a tall guy in a shirt that probably cost more than my rent. And she said, he keeps me grounded. Like, normal guy energy. He laughed. Mr. Balance. And then someone else chimed in from across the circle. Mr. Background. That one stuck. I laughed. A second too late. A shade too flat. But it was enough to keep the vibe alive. Inside, something stung. Not because of the joke. I'd been called worse. It was the way she didn't correct it. Didn't glance at me. Didn't break rhythm. It landed because it was already true in that space. I was the background. The utility. The contrast. The thing that made her seem elevated. Look how chill she is, she dates him. A prop. A baseline. an accessory with eyebrows. Later that night, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "Thank you for being chill tonight. I know these things can be a lot." And I realized, she thought she was being kind. She believed that was a compliment. She didn't see how quietly cruel it was to thank someone for not interrupting their own erasure, for being agreeable enough to disappear. I lay next to her in bed, staring at the ceiling, her breath slow and even beside me. I wondered if I'd ever been visible in the version of us she shared with the world, or if I'd only ever been useful. People say relationships require sacrifice, but no one tells you how subtle that sacrifice can be, how easy it is to call it support when it's actually self-erasure. I didn't leave. Not yet. That would have been obvious. And I wasn't looking for drama. I was looking for space. It started small. She asked if I could help film a segment for her low-effort luxury series. I said I was busy. I wasn't. She reminded me about a Sunday brunch with the girls, the one where I usually played the silent plus one, taking photos and nodding. I told her to go without me. Said I needed rest. She blinked, confused, then smiled. Good for you. I didn't tag her in the photos I started posting. Unfiltered ones. Grainy sunsets. Coffee cups with chipped handles. Stuff she used to call off-brand. I stopped liking her posts. Not out of spite. Just stopped reacting. No fire emoji. No comments about the lighting. No affirmations she could screenshot. She noticed. Said I seemed distant. I nodded. She waited for me to say more. I didn't. Because the thing is, there's a silence that screams, and then there's a silence that simply takes up space. I was learning the difference. She asked, half joking, if I was going through a phase. I said I might be. And then something happened. People started following me. Quietly. Liking my photos. Messaging. Sharing. Not thousands. Just enough to notice. Enough to realize that when I stopped editing myself to fit her narrative, something real slipped through. I didn't gloat. Didn't tell her. Didn't craft a reveal or a twist. I just kept going. And the strangest part? She never asked. Never asked why I'd changed. Why I'd pulled back. Maybe she thought I'd returned to orbit. Maybe she believed my silence meant I was recalibrating, not rewriting the script. But I wasn't angry. I was just done being useful. She used to say I gave her balance. But I'd started to wonder if balance meant burying the parts of me that didn't match her decor. Now, I was building something of my own. Not for revenge. Not to prove anything. Just to hear myself, uninterrupted. She asked to talk. Not in anger. Not in panic. Just in that calm, curated way she did everything. We sat across from each other on the couch she'd picked, in the apartment that always smelled faintly of eucalyptus and wood polish. She said she felt something was off. That we'd lost the spark. That she missed feeling adored. Missed the way I used to light up when she walked into a room. I nodded. Not in agreement, just acknowledgement. Then she said it. I think we need to reconnect. Maybe reframe what this is. Maybe reset. I asked what that meant. She said she wasn't sure, but we could talk about it. That maybe things just got too normal. I didn't laugh. Didn't cry either. I just looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel edited. I said, maybe it was never a spark. Maybe I was just a tasting sample. She tilted her head. That familiar confusion again, like I'd started speaking in code. I continued, softly. Something you tried. Something you liked the look of. But not something you really wanted to fill your glass with. Her mouth opened slightly. No words. Just breath. Then, finally, that's not fair. And she was right. It wasn't fair. But it was true. I didn't explain further. Didn't build a case. Didn't tell her about the birthday joke, the party, the kitchen comment, the PDF itinerary. I didn't ask her to change. Or listen. Or understand. Because I wasn't trying to be seen anymore. I was simply leaving the frame. I stood up. Picked up my keys. Looked around the apartment one last time. All glass and plants and neutral tones. And realized none of it had space for something uncurated. Like grief. Or doubt. Or me. She didn't stop me. She just sat there, still styled. Still composed. Still waiting for the script to continue. But I'd already left the set. People ask what happened. Friends. Acquaintances. Even mutuals from her world who followed me quietly after the fact. I say, it just ran dry. No one really knows what that means, but they nod, like they do. I don't badmouth her. There's no need. She didn't do anything wrong, not in the traditional sense. No betrayal, no outburst, no secret lover. Just slow erosion. Of presence. Of permission to be seen fully. She continued on, as I knew she would. The content pivoted slightly, more solo shots, longer captions, more phrases like healing and self-realignment. No mention of me, just occasional coded references to lessons and boundaries. I didn't feel angry, just relieved, like someone stepping out of a costume that had grown tighter than they realized. I still take photos, but now they're of things that move. Imperfect things. A dog barking at traffic. A coffee stain on an unread book. A fogged mirror. I don't filter them. Don't wait for golden hour. Don't caption them with quotes about balance or rebirth. Just post. The silence is different now. Not punishment. Not a signal. Just space. And in that space, I'm learning to hear myself again. Not the edited version. Not the good sport or normal guy energy. Just me. As is. She said once that life should feel like a well-poured glass of wine. Elegant, intentional, measured. But maybe I was never a wine glass. Maybe I was the table, holding everything steady, until I wasn't. If someone only loves you for how quietly you carry them, what happens when you finally set them down?